Hello there, and welcome. I'm glad you're here. Maybe you're winding down from the weight of the day, or maybe your mind just needs something vast to float inside before sleep finds you. Either way, you've arrived at the right edge of the unknown. You don't have to do anything right now. Let your body settle. Let the noise fall away. Let your breath come slow and steady, like the hush of wind moving through stars you can't quite see. Tonight, we're going to drift, not across galaxies, but across possibilities, real, strange, and barely believable. We're entering the multiverse. This isn't fiction. This is science, perched at the edge of imagination. Because as far as we can tell, reality might be far bigger than we thought, much stranger, much deeper, not one universe, but many. Endless versions, infinite forks, different laws, other yous. These aren't answers, they're open doors. So let go, drift, and follow along as we explore 100 astonishing, haunting, and beautiful truths. Facts that push science into the realm of the surreal. Now take a deep breath, let your day drift away, and let's travel together into the quiet corners of the universe. In the beginning, or at least what we call the beginning, there was a burst, not just of light, or matter, or time, but of space itself. The Big Bang wasn't an explosion in the universe. It was an expansion of the universe. Every point in space rushing away from every other, like dots on the surface of a balloon being blown up from within. But the story may not end, or even begin, with just one balloon. Some physicists believe our universe is only a single bubble in a far larger foam, one that could stretch forever in all directions, birthing new universes endlessly in a process called eternal inflation. Imagine a field, smooth and invisible, stretched across the void before time. In certain spots, this field decays, releasing energy, inflating a pocket of space into something vast and expanding. A universe. That's us. That's our home. But the field doesn't stop. It continues bubbling, swelling, sprouting new universes like droplets condensing on a window pane, each one sealed off from the others by distances so great they may never interact. A cosmic fractal of beginnings, repeating forever. And that's just one version. There may be more universes than there are atoms in ours, more entire realities than particles of matter. The number is so large it swallows thought. Consider that the observable universe contains around 10 to the power of 80 atoms, a 1 followed by 80 zeros. But in an eternally inflating multiverse, the number of universes could be infinite, not in the poetic sense, but in the mathematical, bone-deep sense of without end. Every universe expanding on its own timeline, following its own laws of physics, sprouting galaxies that swirl in shapes our equations don't even predict, some nearly identical to ours, others so different they border on the impossible. In this framework, infinity isn't a metaphor, it's a mechanism. Our universe has edges, not walls, but limits. The farthest light we can see has traveled for over 13 billion years, stretching through expanding space to reach us. Beyond that, darkness. Not because nothing's there, but because the light from those regions hasn't had time to arrive. But space continues, quietly, invisibly, far beyond what we can observe. And if inflation is eternal, then those distant patches have grown their own bubbles. Some may contain carbon, water, stars. Others may not. In one, time might run in spirals. In another, there may be no gravity, no atoms, no light, just possibility, cooled into form. The multiverse isn't a single theory. It's a family of ideas. Some arise from quantum mechanics, where each event branches into multiple outcomes, each realized in its own world. Others come from string theory, where the landscape of possible physical laws is unimaginably vast, and every set of rules corresponds to a different universe. But eternal inflation, This bubbling cosmos model offers a vision that is at once absurd and oddly elegant. It suggests that creation never stopped. It's still happening, out there, in the quiet between universes, and will keep happening forever. We are used to thinking of the universe as everything, but it may only be a thing. And yet, if there are infinite universes, there may also be infinite versions of this one, infinite Earths, infinite yous, each differing in a single choice or a breath of cosmic dust, one where dinosaurs never died, one where the stars shine green, one where you took a different path on a rainy Tuesday and everything changed. In a multiverse without limits, every possible arrangement of matter eventually occurs, not just once, but endlessly. This doesn't mean your life is meaningless. It means it's vast. And while we may never meet our neighbors in this cosmic foam, never breach the walls between our bubble and theirs, the idea that they exist has reshaped how we understand reality. No longer a singular unfolding, but a vast, tangled branching of possibilities, like a tree whose roots grow in every direction, touching every outcome, feeding every variation of existence. The distances between universes are not measured in miles, but in the rules of space itself. You can't travel there, you can't call across, but still, they may exist. Some of the most serious physicists in the world believe this. They run the numbers, write the models, and find themselves face to face with infinity, not because they want to, but because the equations lead them there. And in those equations, something strange emerges. If the multiverse is infinite, and the number of ways matter can be arranged is finite, then duplicates are inevitable. Somewhere out there, maybe unimaginably far, a universe exists that is indistinguishable from this one. Another you is lying in bed right now, listening, wondering, drifting. Go a little farther, and the similarities blur. Go farther still, and everything is unfamiliar. This is not a science fiction story. It's a scientific one that many experts approach with a mix of awe and caution. Because while it is a beautiful idea, it's also almost impossible to test. These other universes may be forever beyond our horizon, sealed off, unreachable. And yet, they may still shape our understanding of what it means to exist at all. We often look up at the night sky and feel small. But in the multiverse, smallness becomes something else. You are not just a speck in the universe. You are a spark in a bonfire of universes. You are not lost in the vastness. You are the vastness. For your mind was shaped by the laws of this one universe, and those laws are a single thread in a tapestry without end. Infinity is not cold. It is not empty. It is alive with every version of light and shadow, every equation, every question, every story. We are a bubble, floating in a sea of bubbles, and the sea has no shore. Right now, somewhere far beyond what you can see or feel, there may be another version of you. Not a stranger, not a metaphor, a full, living self, breathing, thinking, dreaming, maybe even listening. A version of you that made a different choice, who turned left instead of right, who said yes instead of no, who paused when you hurried or reached out when you withdrew. Another you, living in a universe that split from this one not in fire or distance, but in decision. This is the strange and beautiful implication of the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, a theory that begins not with galaxies or gravity, but with the behavior of something far smaller, a single particle. Down in the fabric of reality, everything is probability. A particle isn't just here or there. It exists in a haze of maybes, a cloud of outcomes waiting to become real. But when we observe it, when we measure, it picks one path. It chooses, or so we thought. The many worlds interpretation says the particle doesn't choose at all. Instead, the universe splits. In one branch, the particle goes left. In another, it goes right. And both versions exist. Both are real. The act of observation doesn't collapse reality. It multiplies it. If this is true for particles, then it's true for atoms. And if it's true for atoms, it's true for everything made of them, including you. Which means that right now, in this quiet moment, the universe may be splitting, not just once, but constantly, effortlessly. Every time a quantum event occurs, every time a neuron fires, every time a moment of uncertainty resolves, a new world may branch off. A new you, stepping into a slightly different path, unaware of the split, carrying on as if nothing changed. There is no thunderclap, no flash of light, just a quiet forking, a doubling of stories, a garden of paths that grows denser with every breath. In one world, you are exactly who you are now, lying here, listening, wondering. In another, you are asleep. In another still, you paused this story, or never started it at all. Some of these universes may be nearly identical to ours, shadows differing by a single grain of sand. Others may spiral outward, changed entirely by one small shift, one choice cascading into another, reshaping relationships, lifetimes, entire histories. One of you became a musician. One never left your hometown. One took the job you turned down. One never met the people you now hold closest. One is still waiting at a crossroads you've long since passed. And it's not just about big decisions. It's not only the job, or the city, or the person you chose. It's every flicker of the mind, every roll of a dice, every stray atom, the universe branching like coral, growing infinite limbs in infinite directions, each version just as real as the last, each you just as full of thought and memory, unaware of the splits behind or ahead. We're taught to think of reality as singular, linear, one solid line stretching forward through time. But what if it's more like a fan, a constantly opening spread of possibilities, unfolding faster than we can perceive? What if, instead of time marching forward, it's flowing outward, splashing into countless variants of now? This doesn't make your choices meaningless. It makes them vast. It means that each decision is not the closing of a door, but the opening of many. It means that the self you are right now is just one thread in a shimmering tapestry woven from light, chance, and infinite branching. You aren't less real because others exist. You are part of something enormous. You are part of a structure that contains every version of you that could ever be. Of course, we don't feel this. We move through life believing in singularity. We make our decisions and live with them. We imagine roads not taken as fiction, not fact. But if many worlds is true, then those other roads were taken, just not here, just not in this thread, and the you who walks them is not dreaming. They are living. The concept is both comforting and unsettling. It means you are never alone, but also that you are never singular. It means you have already said goodbye and hello, already failed and succeeded, already loved and lost in countless ways. It means that nothing is ever truly left behind. It simply continues somewhere else. This is not fantasy. The equations of quantum physics are among the most rigorously tested in science, and yet they lead us to a place that feels like poetry, like mythology carved from numbers. Many worlds removes the need for a wave function collapse. It keeps the math smooth and complete. But in doing so, it opens the door to something staggeringly large. A multiverse not created by inflation or dimensions, but by the mechanics of reality itself. Some physicists believe this is the simplest explanation. Others reject. It is unprovable, untestable, a metaphysical artifact of overzealous interpretation. But the idea lingers. It resonates. Not just because it's mathematically plausible, but because it touches something deeply human, the idea that we are more than the sum of our singular lives. It suggests that the universe remembers every possibility, that nothing is ever truly erased, that somewhere, In a quiet room very much like this one, another version of you is listening, just as you are now. Eyes closed, drifting, wondering what might have been. And the truth is, it was, and still is, just not here, not in this thread, but somewhere close, always close, forever branching. We are surrounded by rules. Gravity pulls. Time moves forward. Light has a speed limit. These aren't laws written in stone. They're more like settings, quiet constants stitched into the code of our universe. We live by them without thinking, because they never change. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. The electron has a certain charge. The speed of light is always the same. These values seem so fundamental, so permanent. It's easy to believe they were inevitable. But they weren't. They're just ours. And in other universes, if they exist, those constants might be completely different. Imagine a universe where gravity is twice as strong. Stars would burn faster. Planets might be smaller, compressed into tighter spheres. Life, if it emerged, would be built low to the ground, dense and squat, evolved to withstand the weight of a world that pulls more fiercely. Or imagine a universe where gravity is weaker, so weak that galaxies never coalesce. No stars, no planets. Just a thin fog of particles drifting forever, too distant to light up, too sparse to collapse. No ground, no sky, just silence. Some universes might have more dimensions than ours, 10, 12, even more, folded and curled in ways we can't picture, where time loops or splits or runs sideways. Others might lack a force entirely, no electromagnetism, no strong nuclear force. In our world, those forces bind atoms together, light up stars, power the chemistry of life. Without them, reality might never congeal into anything stable. It might unravel before it even begins. Still, there's a strange kind of hope in these broken worlds. Not all of them are barren. Some, against all odds, might be fertile in ways we can't imagine. Life, after all, is not limited to the forms we know. It doesn't require carbon, or water, or even time as we understand it. Life is adaptability. Life is pattern. It finds cracks in the rules and pushes through. Even in our universe, extremophiles, tiny organisms, live in boiling acid, in radioactive waste, in the frozen darkness beneath Antarctic ice. If they can survive here, how much more might be possible elsewhere, under alien rules, with different definitions of matter and motion? Perhaps in one universe, life is made of something more ephemeral. Magnetic fields, spinning vortices of energy that flicker and hum in place of blood and bone. Perhaps in another, beings are born from pure geometry, shaped not by biology, but by the curvature of their space. We tend to think of the laws of physics as universal, but that may only be true inside our universe. Beyond it, in the multiverse, the rules may shift. The idea comes from string theory, a framework that suggests a vast landscape of possible universes, each with its own version of the constants. In some regions of that landscape, stars never form. In others, they form too quickly and burn too hot. Most of these places are sterile, inhospitable, but a few, a very few, fall into a narrow band where the conditions are just right, not perfect, just possible. We live in one of those rare universes, not because it was made for us, but because we could only have emerged in a universe where emergence was allowed. This is the anthropic principle. It doesn't mean the universe cares about us. It means we're a product of selection. We look out across the stars and ask why the universe fits us so well. The answer may be, it doesn't. We fit it. This one narrow version of reality out of an uncountable spread. Still, some universes might be almost like ours, familiar but subtly off. One where the fine structure constant is just a bit higher, shifting the way atoms form and how light behaves. One where the charge of the proton is different by a sliver, altering chemistry in strange and subtle ways. Even small changes can ripple outward, transforming everything. In one version, fire might be impossible. In another, stars might never die. In still another, time might never have begun. There are even models in which time runs in reverse, not in metaphor, but in actual physical flow. Imagine a universe expanding like ours, but from its perspective, it's moving backward. Its version of now trails into what we'd call the past. From our view, entropy increases. From theirs, it decreases. And yet both are valid. Both obey their own version of order, their own kind of logic. These are not fantasies. They are extrapolations from our own physics. Possibilities buried in the equations, permitted by the math. Even if unprovable from here, we may never visit these universes. We may never even detect them. But the fact that they could exist changes how we see everything. It shifts our certainty. It humbles our assumptions. It reminds us that our universe is not the default. It is not the norm. It is one arrangement among many, possibly infinite, each with its own flavor of reality. Some are chaotic, some are quiet. Some flare into being and vanish again, like sparks in cosmic wind. Some grow vast and old, some never begin at all. And within that kaleidoscope of realities, the familiar becomes fragile. The speed of light, the pull of gravity, the flicker of time. These are not absolutes, they are choices. Cosmic conditions set at the dawn of our enscad universe. Change them, and everything changes. And yet, somewhere out there, something may still be watching sunsets in a world built on entirely different rules. Something may be dreaming under twin stars, built not of atoms, but of whatever that universe permits. They will not call it physics, they will call it home. And maybe, in some incomprehensible way, they wonder about us too. There's a quiet assumption we carry, so deeply rooted that we almost never question it. The world feels three-dimensional. We move forward, backward, side to side, up and down. We build with height, walk with depth, see with perspective. The idea that reality is solid and spatial seems obvious, undeniable. But what if it isn't? What if the depth we experience is not something fundamental, but something emergent, not real, but rendered? Like an image on a screen given the illusion of space? This is the unsettling possibility behind the holographic principle. A theory born not from imagination, but from the stubborn edges of physics, where black holes bend the rules and gravity begins to blur. It started with a paradox. Physicists realized that when you try to cram too much information into a region of space, too much mass, too much energy, it collapses into a black hole. And when they measured how much information was inside that black hole, something strange happened. It didn't scale with volume, as you might expect. It scaled with surface area. The information content of the black hole seemed to reside not in the space, but on its outer skin, as if the interior were just a projection. This was more than a mathematical curiosity. It hinted at something deeper, that space itself might be encoded at the edges. That what we perceive as a three-dimensional reality might be emerging from a lower dimensional boundary, like a hologram projected from a flat surface. In this view, the entire universe, everything you know and touch and remember, might be like a film on the surface of something else. Depth, in this scenario, is a kind of illusion, a very convincing one, but an illusion nonetheless. Imagine a coin held under a bright light, casting a shadow that looks like a sphere. From one angle, the shadow moves, bends, deepens. It appears three-dimensional, but it's a flat projection dependent on perspective. Now stretch that thought, scale it up to the universe itself. What if your life, your memories, your body, your thoughts are real, but not quite in the way you've been led to believe? What if they're patterns on a surface beyond your reach, unfolding in higher mathematics, playing out in a place that doesn't feel like a place at all? This doesn't mean you're not real. It means real might be more flexible than we imagined. The holographic principle suggests that the true description of our universe may lie on a two-dimensional boundary far away, possibly at the edge of the cosmos itself. All the gravity, all the particles, all the interactions, the entire intricate ballet of existence could be encoded like information on that surface. Not metaphorically, but literally. A universe painted on a canvas we can't see, rendered into three-dimensional form by the mathematics of space and time. It's a strange and unsettling idea, but it fits the data. In certain versions of string theory, physicists have shown that a universe with gravity can be described entirely by a theory on its boundary, without gravity. It's like discovering that a book you've been reading your whole life, thinking it was written in your language, has another script hidden in the margins, telling the same story in a completely different way. This doesn't make the story less beautiful. It makes it more mysterious. If the holographic principle is true, then reality is not what it appears to be, not in its structure, and maybe not in its substance. We may be part of a deeper information field, like waves on a pond that reflect light and cast shadows, hinting at something beneath. Every object, every movement, every moment you experience could be a ripple in that information, organized into patterns your mind has learned to interpret as solidity and time. We're not used to thinking of ourselves as information, but already so much of what we are is encoded. DNA is a set of instructions. Neurons fire in electrical sequences. Memories are patterns of connections. Our identities, our choices, our sensations, they're all built from bits, not the digital kind, but the kind that underlie all form and function. And if the universe itself is a kind of code, then perhaps consciousness is not separate from it, but one of its native expressions. Maybe the mind isn't trapped in the hologram. Maybe it's part of what makes it visible. In this view, existence becomes something like a dream we share. A dream not made of fantasy, but of finely structured truth. Truth told in the language of surfaces, reflected inward as depth. We are inside the image, unable to see the screen, only the light it emits. And yet we move through it, feel it, shape it. Illusion or not, the experience is real, and there's something oddly comforting in that. The idea that even if the world is a kind of projection, it is one you can still love. You can still hold a hand, whisper a word, close your eyes and feel warmth. You can still cry at the end of a story, or laugh when someone surprises you. The texture of life isn't diminished by its structure. If anything, it's enhanced, because it means you are part of something vast and hidden, not less real, but more deeply woven. A single image can hold infinite layers of meaning. A shadow can tell the shape of a thing you can't see, and maybe the universe is like that, a brilliant flickering veil pulled from a boundary we may never touch, a story told from the edge, playing out in the center, and you, resting here now, are part of that story, a fold in the projection, a detail in the light, not less, not fake, just more mysterious than it seemed. There's a quiet elegance in the way the universe works. Planets don't just spin, they orbit with a precision you can write down. Light doesn't just glow, it moves in waves, with frequencies and amplitudes that can be plotted and predicted. Everything from the fall of an apple to the fusion inside a star follows rules we can express as equations, smooth and symmetrical, like reflections in still water. For centuries, we've used mathematics to describe reality. But what if we've had it backwards? What if math isn't just a tool for explaining the universe? What if it is the universe? This is the idea at the heart of the mathematical universe hypothesis, proposed by physicist Max Tegmark. It's a radical thought, yet strangely intuitive, that everything around you, matter, energy, space, time, is not built from stuff, but from structure. That beneath every star and atom and heartbeat lies not substance, but pattern. And that pattern is mathematics. It's not that the universe obeys math like a student follows rules. It's that the universe is math. In the same way a melody is not just played, it is the arrangement of notes. The music doesn't exist separately from its structure. It is the structure, and so too, perhaps, with existence itself. In this view, reality is the unfolding of an equation, one that doesn't just describe the cosmos. It is the cosmos. This might sound abstract, but it brings a strange kind of clarity. It explains why the laws of physics are so precise, so clean, why the same constants hold true across light years of distance and billions of years of time. Why, when we seek to understand the world, we reach for math not as decoration, but as compass. The equations work because they are not separate from the thing. They are the thing. The spinning of galaxies, the decay of particles, the birth of photons in a candle's flame. These are all mathematical operations, running like lines of a program. And if that's true, if math is not just a lens, but the foundation, then the implications stretch far beyond this universe. Because in mathematics, there is no limit to what can exist. There are infinite equations, infinite structures. Not all of them look like our world. Some are chaotic, unstable, incapable of harboring anything that resembles life or form. But others may be coherent, consistent, fully formed. Mathematical frameworks different from ours, but just as real, just as valid. And if every complete mathematical structure is a universe, then the multiverse becomes more than just a scattering of possibilities. It becomes a vast library of realities, each one built from its own set of equations. Some might resemble our own, with particles and gravity and stars that shine. Others might be unrecognizable, universes with entirely different dimensionality, or ones where time doesn't tick forward, but curls into loops or folds back on itself. There could be realities where symmetry is broken in unfamiliar ways, where logic bends, where the concept of causality doesn't even apply. In those places, existence might feel like something we can't describe, a kind of being not anchored in space or time, but in pure relation. And if those structures exist, if they are self-consistent and complete, then they may be just as real as ours. Not potential, not imagined, but actual. They don't need to be made of matter to be real. They only need to be made of math. And perhaps, in some ultimate sense, that's all anything is. This idea is both humbling and exhilarating. It means that reality is not built from bricks or particles, but from truths. Timeless, placeless truths that don't change whether anyone sees them or not. It means that somewhere, in the quiet of mathematical space, there may be worlds blooming from equations we've never dreamed of. Worlds where existence flows like algebra, where consciousness emerges not from neurons, but from the relationships between abstract forms. Worlds where life doesn't breathe, it calculates. We may never reach these places, we may never even detect them, but their possibility redefines what it means to be. It suggests that reality is not confined to what we observe. It's not limited to what we can touch or test. It is broader, more inclusive, a canvas for every structure that can exist without contradiction. In that light, our universe is not the default. It's one painting in an infinite gallery, one solution to an infinite set of equations, and this too shifts how we think about ourselves. If the universe is a mathematical object, then we are part of that object. We are not separate. We are not superimposed. We are substructures in the equation, patterns in the logic, self-aware solutions arising within the system. Every thought, every feeling, every flicker of identity is part of the math. Not outside it, but inside it, like loops inside loops, meaning emerging from form. It's easy to feel small in a multiverse like this, to imagine yourself as just another equation in an endless flood. But it's just as easy to feel connected, to see yourself not as lost in the math but held by it. supported by a structure so vast it contains every version of truth, every possibility of being. You are not less meaningful because others exist. You are one realization of something beautiful. You are one voice in the harmony of forms. And tonight, as you lie here, letting your thoughts drift, you are doing what mathematics has always done. You are exploring, mapping, wondering. You are part of the equation unfolding, not separate from it, not ever, but carried within it, like a pattern in light, like music in the silence, not illusion, not randomness, but meaning, expressed in the only language the universe has ever truly spoken. We are so deeply tethered to time that we rarely notice it pulling. It governs every heartbeat, every memory, every withering leaf and breaking wave. It's the current we drift on without resistance, a quiet engine humming behind every breath and blink. Seconds become minutes, minutes become years, and we grow old without ever having to learn how. Time simply carries us forward, like a river that never looks back. But what if time isn't fundamental? What if it's not a backdrop to reality, but a local condition, something that arises here, but not everywhere? In some multiverse models, time is not guaranteed. It's not built into the fabric of all possible realities. Some universes might not have it at all. Others might hold it in strange forms, circular, branching, frozen, or shattered into fragments that never align. We imagine time as a line, but it may only be a line here. In the equations of physics, time doesn't always play a starring role. Many of the most powerful laws are time-symmetric. They work just as well in reverse. There's nothing in Newton's equations that demands an arrow of time, nothing in the Schrödinger equation that says the future must differ from the past. Even the patterns of particle interactions don't strictly require time to move in one direction. The laws seem to care only about relations, how things change compared to each other. Not when, not how fast, just that they do. In fact, there are solutions to those equations, entire models of the universe that don't include time at all, not as we know it. Imagine a realm where everything simply is, every moment, every configuration, not unfolding, but coexisting. No past to remember, no future to fear, just an eternal structure, still and whole, like a sculpture carved from the substance of possibility. In that universe, motion doesn't happen, change doesn't occur. What we call events are merely features of the whole, frozen into position, not flickering into being one after another, but eternally present. To us, that might feel lifeless, but it's only our intuition that recoils, our need for narrative, our need for beginnings and middles and ends. But in a timeless universe, existence might be more like a chord than a melody, every note at once, every possibility held in a single span, not less alive, just differently structured. Then there are the universes where time does exist, but not as a steady flow. It may run in loops, repeating endlessly, like ripples trapped in a circular pond. Or it might branch infinitely, forking at every quantum choice, spreading out like a tree whose growth has no center. In some models, time is emergent, bubbling up only in regions of complexity, where matter organizes, where observers evolve. In other places, where everything is smooth and featureless, time may not be distinguishable from space at all. And what about our own universe? Even here, time might not be what we think. General relativity tells us that time bends with gravity, slows near massive objects, stretches under acceleration. The future arrives at different speeds depending on where you are and how you move. It isn't fixed, it isn't absolute. Two people can disagree on when something happened and both be right. Time, in that sense, is personal, local, a thread woven differently depending on your path. Cosmologists even ask whether time had a beginning. Our universe emerged from a singularity, a point of infinite density, infinite heat. Before that, There may have been no time at all, or time may have existed in another form, inaccessible to us. Some theories suggest a before the Big Bang, a mirror universe moving in reverse. Others suggest time itself bloomed with space as a property of the expanding cosmos. If that's true, then time is not an eternal stage. It is a feature of our particular bubble in the multiverse. Other bubbles might lack it entirely. There may be places where time never started. No ticking clock, no entropy, no progression, just a static landscape, waiting or not waiting, because waiting requires time. In those worlds, nothing would ever happen, because happening itself is a temporal idea. Instead, reality would simply be complete, unchanging, not dead, but timeless. And then there are universes where every moment exists all at once. In relativity, past, present, and future are not universally agreed upon. What is now for you might be someone else's long ago. This leads to the concept of a block universe, a model where time is laid out like space, with every moment eternal and real. In that view, you are not moving through time. You are time. Your life is not a journey but a shape, fixed and full. Every heartbeat, every thought, every goodbye, already there, already complete. That idea can feel claustrophobic, as if we've lost free will. But it can also be liberating, because it means nothing is truly lost. It means every tender moment still exists, held forever in the structure of reality. Your childhood laugh, your first love, the last words you spoke to someone you miss, they're still there, not gone, just elsewhere in the block. You can't reach them, but they haven't disappeared. They're part of the tapestry, etched into the universe like light in crystal. In a multiverse where time is optional, we must rethink what it means to be. We are used to beginnings and endings, to living in the in-between. But if time is just one way for reality to express itself, then being doesn't require it. Awareness doesn't require it. Meaning doesn't require it. There may be forms of consciousness that don't think in sequence, that don't remember or anticipate, that simply are, stretched across a moment that never changes, yet contains all change within it. You, lying here now, are drifting through one particular river of time. It feels solid and steady, but it's just a feature of this world. You move with it, gently, unknowingly, like a leaf on the current. But beyond it, outside it, there may be oceans without flow, realities without rhythm. And perhaps, one day, when the last second has passed, you'll find yourself in one of those still places, not waiting, not ending, just resting, where time never began and never needs to. We like to imagine our universe as self-contained, a sealed vessel, a bubble of stars and silence floating in some grand cosmic sea. But what if it isn't alone? What if, just beyond what we can touch, there are others, entire universes, rich and strange, gliding silently alongside ours, not light years away, but right here, layered like whispers in the folds of space? In our familiar world, we move through 3 dimensions, forward and back, left and right, up and down. Time, the 4th, moves with us, like a current we cannot turn against. But the math of string theory and other attempts to unify the forces of nature requires more. 10 dimensions, 11, maybe more still. Most of them curled up tightly, hidden from our senses, like pages folded into the spine of a book. Invisible, but not absent. And within those hidden folds, some physicists believe other universes may reside, not beyond the stars, but beside us. Think of a sheet of paper. Now imagine another sheet stacked on top. 2 worlds, separate, but close. If you're a 2-dimensional creature living on the first sheet, you'll never see the other. Your world is flat, and your senses are bound to the surface. But the sheets are just millimeters apart. Now imagine countless such sheets, stacked in a multidimensional ream, rippling softly in some higher space. This is how some envision the multiverse, not as a scattering of distant bubbles, but as a layered architecture, with universes brushing against each other, like ghost ships in a fog. In these models, known as Brane worlds, short for membrane, each universe is a surface floating in a higher dimensional space, called the bulk. Our universe could be one such brane, vast but thin, like a curtain drifting in an unseen breeze. Others might hang nearby, separated by the smallest of distances, not spatial, as we know it, but dimensional. They could be so close that if you could step sideways in just the right way, you might find yourself in an entirely different cosmos, a universe with its own stars, its own physics, maybe even its own version of you. But those steps are not ones we can take. Not yet. Still, the possibility lingers, haunting and beautiful, that these worlds are not out of reach, just out of phase. They might be interwoven with our own in ways we don't understand. Their gravity could seep across dimensions, subtly tugging on ours. Some researchers have even speculated that dark matter, the invisible mass that shapes galaxies but doesn't emit light, could be the gravitational fingerprint of matter from a neighboring universe, a shadow overlapping ours, not imagined, not supernatural, just unseen. There are stranger possibilities still. If two brain worlds drift too close, they might collide. In some models of cosmology, our Big Bang wasn't the beginning of everything, but the result of such a collision. Two universes brushing, releasing a storm of energy, inflating into space and time as we know them. And if that happened once, it could happen again. Somewhere in the silent vastness of higher dimensions, other universes might be crashing and blooming, creating new realities in a rhythm far beyond our perception. And what if the boundaries between these universes are not perfect? What if, sometimes, something leaks through? Folklore across cultures is filled with tales of thin places, locations where reality seems delicate, where strange things happen, where the air hums with something not quite of this world. Doorways in the forest, uncanny moments of déjà vu, glimpses of people who vanish in the blink of an eye. We tend to file these away as dreams or illusions, tricks of the brain. And perhaps they are. But perhaps, once in a while, those stories are echoes, moments where our universe briefly brushes against another, like two shadows crossing under moonlight, leaving a ripple no one can quite explain. Science hasn't proven any of this, but the mathematics doesn't forbid it. And in the space between what is known and what is possible, there is room for wonder. The idea that parallel universes are close, so close they might touch, is both thrilling and unsettling. It means that what we see is not all there is. It means that reality, as vast as it feels, may be only one layer in a greater weave. And you, resting here, are not perched at the edge of space. You are surrounded by infinities you cannot feel, not distant, just veiled. There could be another you in one of those nearby worlds. Not the same, not different. Just another path followed, another version shaped by choices you didn't make. Maybe they stood up when you stayed silent. Maybe they left when you stayed. Maybe they live in a universe where history turned out differently, where the sky is green and gravity is soft and love has a different name. Maybe they too wonder if they are alone. And maybe, once in a great while, your thoughts align, like tuning forks separated by a wall, resonating to the same unseen frequency. A feeling you can't explain, a chill for no reason, a sudden sense that you are being watched, not by something sinister, but by something familiar, as if another version of you is thinking the same thought, at the same moment, in a place not so far away. It may be nothing, or it may be the whisper of another world, sliding silently past your own. You won't feel it, you won't see it, but you are part of this layered multiverse, whether you know it or not. You are a ripple in one sheet, gliding through higher space, forever accompanied by others you cannot touch. And as you drift into sleep, your breath softening, your thoughts loosening their grip, maybe, just maybe, another version of you is doing the same, in a universe just beyond this one, so close you could almost hear them breathing. Black holes are the quietest monsters in the cosmos. They don't howl or burn or break apart with fury. They wait, perfectly still, perfectly dark, like the punctuation marks at the end of a sentence too long to understand. We know they're real. We've seen their shadows against the glow of galaxies. We've watched stars circle something invisible and vanish. We've measured the way they bend light, twist space, slow time to a crawl. But what happens past that last edge, the event horizon, aligned, remains a mystery so deep, even light doesn't return from it. To most, a black hole is an end, the final chapter in the story of a star, a point where matter is crushed into silence, where time itself seems to halt, where gravity pulls with such intensity that nothing escapes, not even memory. It's a place where the known laws of physics begin to fray, where general relativity and quantum mechanics stop shaking hands and start talking past each other. But in that fraying, in that deep, unknowable dark, some physicists see not an ending, but a beginning, a doorway. What if black holes don't destroy? What if they transform? There's a theory, more than one in fact, that suggests when matter falls into a black hole, it doesn't simply vanish. Instead, it's compacted into a singularity so dense, so intense, that it tears through the fabric of this universe and pierces another. The black hole becomes a seed, and on the other side, a new universe inflates, one that's forever cut off from ours. We can't reach it, we can't see it, but it might grow from the heart of a collapsing star, blooming on the far side of death. This idea transforms every black hole into a kind of cosmic chrysalis. From the outside, we see the shell, a horizon so dark that nothing leaks out. But inside, there could be change, expansion, genesis, a rebirth not into light, but into new dimensions, with new laws, new time, new space, a new reality, whole and separate. If this is true, then our universe might not be the only one with stars and galaxies and curious creatures wondering where it all comes from. We might be part of a much larger structure, a branching tree of universes, each born from the death of another. In this view, our Big Bang wasn't the start of everything. It was the result of something else collapsing in a higher reality. Another black hole, in another universe. When that singularity formed, it didn't simply end a world. It gave birth to ours. And so it goes, perhaps endlessly, universes birthing universes, not in space, but through it. One becoming the seed of another, each carrying within it the code of its parent, but unfolding in a way uniquely its own. Some would collapse quickly, their physics too chaotic to allow structure. Others might stretch and cool and form stars, atoms, stories. Some might curl in on themselves or expand forever, but all of them would be born not in light, but in darkness. The idea is haunting. It means that every black hole we see, those yawning mouths at the center of galaxies, those remnants of massive stars, is more than just a trap. It might be a womb, a cosmic passageway, and inside it, time and space might not end. They might just start over. We will likely never know what's beyond an event horizon. It's not just distant, it's sealed by the very nature of physics. Once something crosses that edge, it cannot communicate back. No signal, no particle, no clue. The information is either locked away or, as some theories suggest, smeared across the horizon in a strange quantum haze, like memories etched into the surface of forgetting. But the idea that something continues, quietly, privately, has a strange beauty to it. It means that even in destruction, there may be creation. That endings may not be as final as they seem. That death, on the scale of universes, is not an erasure, but a transformation too vast for us to perceive. And if black holes are birthing new universes, what becomes of the matter they consume? The stars, the planets, the falling gas and drifting dust? Does it seed the new universe's structure, or vanish into some deeper form of geometry? Do the laws of physics in the offspring universe reflect the properties of the black hole that created it? Could black holes be not just bridges, but blueprints? If so, our own universe may carry the fingerprints of its origin, the values of our physical constants, the strength of gravity, the charge of the electron. The rate at which the universe expands might not be arbitrary. They might be inherited, echoes of a parent universe whose black hole cracked open and spilled into this one. And in turn, the black holes we harbor now could be laying the foundation for other realities, nested like seeds inside fruit, each with its own possibility. Perhaps the multiverse is not scattered randomly, but connected. A lineage, a family tree, written in gravity. And you, here on this quiet night, are part of that lineage. A creature made from the elements of stars, in a universe born from something else's end, living under the watch of black holes that may one day give rise to new worlds you will never see. You are part of a cycle so slow, so grand, that even time can barely hold it. You are the witness of one chapter in a story told in gravity and silence. One day, this universe may cool. The stars will dim, the black holes will dominate, and perhaps, as the final collapse comes, another beginning will spark, far beyond the ashes. And somewhere in that new place, something will look to the sky and wonder where it came from, not knowing it was born from the darkness, just like us. Long after the fire of creation cooled, a faint glow remained, a whisper of light, stretched thin across time, too cold to see with our eyes but not silent. It fills the sky in every direction, a soft, steady hum, like the last breath of a sleeping giant. This is the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang, a relic of when everything was closer, hotter, simpler. It is the oldest light in the universe and one of the most powerful. It isn't smooth. When astronomers first measured it, they expected uniformity, a calm sea of temperature, the same in all directions. But what they found instead were tiny ripples, microscopic variations in warmth, like delicate wrinkles in an otherwise flat sheet. These ripples aren't noise, they're history. They are the seeds from which galaxies grew, the fingerprints of quantum fluctuations stretched to cosmic scale. The patterns are too subtle for intuition, but their structure carries meaning. They are a message, written in degrees barely above absolute zero, and some believe that message may be larger than we ever imagined, because not all the ripples are easily explained. There are cold spots that seem too wide, anomalies that seem to linger where randomness should reign. Some are statistical quirks, others may be artifacts of how we observe, but there are a few, just a few, that resist explanation. Strange smudges in the afterglow, as if something vast brushed against the edge of our reality long ago, leaving a dent, not a hole, just a subtle distortion, like a shallow bruise on the sky. What could cause such a thing? One possibility, strange, speculative, but not forbidden, is that these blemishes are evidence of collisions, not between stars or galaxies, but between entire universes. In the multiverse model known as eternal inflation, our universe is one bubble in a sea of bubbles. Each bubble is a region where inflation, the rapid, exponential expansion that followed the Big Bang, has slowed down and cooled, forming space, time, and matter. But inflation doesn't stop everywhere at once. It continues in other places, endlessly, birthing more bubbles, each with its own laws, its own constants, its own story. Sometimes, those bubbles collide. The space between them is not empty. It's a medium of sorts, a fabric of energy and geometry beyond our own. When two bubbles expand and meet, they don't pass through each other like soap bubbles in the air. They deform, distort, imprint. The edges shimmer with energy, forming shock waves of physics we cannot recreate. Inside the bubbles, observers, like us, might one day see the scar, not as a crash or a flash, but as a mark in the sky, a faint pattern, a circular distortion in the cosmic microwave background where the uniformity breaks. It would look like a ring, soft, subtle, too large to point at, too faint to be sure. And maybe we've seen it. The cold spot in the southern sky is one such place. It's colder than the rest of the background by a few hundred microkelvin. Not much, but enough to be noticed. Some say it's a statistical fluke. Others propose more mundane explanations. A void in the distribution of galaxies that could absorb some of the background light, creating a shadow. But the void isn't big enough. The data doesn't fit perfectly. And so, the idea remains. Perhaps this is the mark of another universe, brushing past our own in the early moments of existence. If that's true, it would mean our universe has neighbors, real ones, not imagined or theoretical, but actual regions of space-time that once touched ours, that still exist now, beyond the horizon of our visibility, forever out of reach, but not beyond inference. And it would mean the story of our cosmos is not solitary. We are not a lone bubble in an empty bath. We are one among many, shaped by encounters we didn't witness and can barely detect. The mathematics of inflation allows for this. The equations do not flinch at the idea of infinite bubbles. Some theorists even suggest that different collision events might leave different patterns. Some circular, some elliptical, some more like ripples from a pebble dropped into a vast, unseen sea. Detecting those patterns, if they exist, would require sensitivity and clarity far beyond what we have now. But we're getting closer. Satellites like WMAP and Planck have given us exquisite maps of the microwave background. We can now see the universe as it was just 380,000 years after the Big Bang. Still glowing, still hot, still young. It's a kind of baby photo, not of stars or galaxies, but of potential. And hidden in that photo might be messages from beyond our world, silent collisions, ancient brushes with realities that never grew up beside us, but were there all the same. It's humbling, and it's strange, because we think of the sky as empty, but it holds echoes. We think of the universe as ours, but the light around us carries signs of something more. And though the evidence is still debated, still inconclusive, the idea itself has a kind of gravity, a quiet pull, that we might read the scars of other worlds in the softest light. Perhaps one day we'll understand it clearly. Perhaps the dents will become clearer, the patterns more undeniable. Or perhaps they will remain as they are now, subtle, suggestive, full of mystery, a puzzle we revisit not to solve, but to wonder at. And as you lie still beneath your own sky, the one painted with stars and silence, remember that it is not just a ceiling, it is a canvas. And in the faint ancient glow that bathes it, there may be shadows of other worlds, not just imagined, but remembered. Imagine a universe that never knew warmth, one where there was no fire to gather around, no suns to rise, no ground to hold the shape of footsteps, no atoms to breathe, no particles to touch, not even the flicker of light. Just silence. Not the kind we know between words or across a still lake, but something deeper. An emptiness that isn't waiting to be filled, because nothing was ever meant to fill it. A universe without matter, not broken, not dead, just built on different rules. In our universe, matter is the architecture of experience. It's what forms stars, what cools into planets, what clusters into galaxies and selves. Even air, unseen, is made of tiny pieces, dancing, colliding, obeying forces we've come to measure but still don't fully understand. It's easy to think of matter as inevitable, like gravity, like time. But matter is the product of very specific balances, laws tuned with unimaginable precision. Shift those values ever so slightly, and things begin to vanish. Atoms can't hold together. Protons never form. Particles decay too fast, or bind too tightly, or simply don't exist. And the world we know, its color, its chaos, its warmth, never arrives. Some multiverse models suggest that other universes exist where this is exactly what happened. Not failures, not errors, just outcomes. Paths walked by nature when the cosmic dice landed differently. In these universes, there may be energy, radiation, rippling through a void. Rules still govern the space. Equations still tick in the dark. But without matter, there is nothing to build with. No complexity, no structure, no spark that might one day call itself alive. It's hard to picture. We're so used to thinking in terms of things. Chairs, trees, rivers, stars. But in these other realms, there are no things, no surfaces, no names, just fields and numbers, humming in a vacuum where nothing ever gathers. And yet, even here, there is a strange kind of beauty, because laws themselves can exist without matter. Mathematics doesn't need mass to unfold. The geometry of space can ripple, bend, exist as possibility. These empty universes may stretch forever, flat and cold, or they may curve inward, collapsing again and again in silent pulses. Or they may be so static, so delicately balanced, that time itself becomes irrelevant. A universe with no before and after, only endless stillness, cradled by unchanging laws. Some of these universes might flicker briefly into existence and vanish. Others might stretch on for what, to us, would feel like eternity. But none would know stars. None would host the slow alchemy of stardust turning into thought. And yet they are part of the tapestry. Their silence gives shape to our sound. Their emptiness frames our abundance. In the vast spectrum of what reality can be, they are the notes that never rang out. Even more haunting is the possibility of universes with almost matter, where something tries to form, a field fluctuates. A particle appears but cannot stabilize. Imagine a cosmos where a single electron is born, alone, and exists for the briefest breath before the vacuum swallows it. No pattern, no progression, just the smallest flicker of almost. Or stranger still, rules without content, a universe with defined constants, structured laws, an elaborate system of physics, but no ingredients. It's like a song with a score but no instruments, a poem with perfect meter but no voice to recite it. There's an elegance in that too, a kind of sterile perfection, nothing to disturb the harmony. No entropy, no error, no entropy to measure time's arrow, just the quiet ticking of an empty clock. You might ask what the point of such a universe would be, but that assumes there has to be a point. We often think of the multiverse as a stage set for us, variations of what we know, what we are. But the deeper you go, the more that idea fades. It's not about us. It never was. The multiverse, if it exists, doesn't seek meaning. It just is. Possibility, expressed in every form, even those without observers, even those without form at all. These empty universes are reminders that reality is not a ladder with us at the top. It's a vast field, stretching in all directions, where every point is just one version of what can be. We happen to land in a universe where matter clumps, where chemistry dreams, where physics allows for memory and love and time. But we are not the rule. We are the lucky accident, the spark that caught. And somewhere, beyond the reach of light, there are places where no spark ever comes, places that are not broken, just quiet, not tragic, just other. And perhaps, in the deepest way, they are not so different from us, because we too are made mostly of emptiness. The atoms in your hand are almost entirely space. The universe you live in is 95% dark, and between every heartbeat, there is a silence that holds the beat together. We are shaped by what is not there, just as much as what is. So rest easy under this sky, full of stars and stories. Know that ours is one of the loud universes, the bright ones, where matter hums and glows. But somewhere out there are quiet ones, still and rule-bound, perfect in their emptiness. A reminder that not all songs need to be heard to be real. Some are written only in silence, at the smallest scale imaginable, where reality flickers and fidgets, where certainty dissolves into probability, and nothing sits still for long. There is a strange kind of magic. It's not the magic of spells or illusion, but something far more persistent, a quiet defiance of what should be possible. Particles, according to the equations that govern them, sometimes go where they shouldn't. They don't walk through walls, they tunnel. Without breaking the barrier, without opening a door, they simply disappear from one side and reappear on the other, as though reality itself offered a hidden passageway, just wide enough for a whisper of existence to slip through. It's called quantum tunneling, and it isn't rare. It happens constantly, beneath our notice, deep inside stars, in radioactive atoms, in the circuits of your phone. It's how the sun burns. It's how time moves forward. It is not a glitch or an error in nature's code. It's part of the code itself. And if that much can happen at the level of a single particle, what happens when we scale that strangeness upward? Some physicists believe this isn't just a quirk of subatomic behavior. It might be the key to something much larger, the birth of universes. To understand how, imagine the universe not as a single fixed thing, but as a field of possibilities, a landscape. In this landscape, each valley is a vacuum state, a kind of energetic resting place. Our universe, as it stands now, sits in one of these valleys. It seems stable, balanced. But the strange thing is, there could be lower valleys out there, deeper ones. And if they exist, then our universe isn't in the true lowest energy state. It's in a false vacuum. A false vacuum feels like a safe place. It acts stable. It looks real. But under the right circumstances, rare, random, and unfathomably precise, it might not be permanent. The laws of quantum mechanics allow for the possibility that one day, somewhere in the vast emptiness of space, a tiny bubble could form, a bubble of true vacuum. It would start impossibly small, but once formed, it would grow, expand, tunneling not just through matter or molecules, but through the very nature of space-time itself. This new bubble wouldn't be part of our universe. It would be the beginning of a new one. Inside that bubble, the laws of physics might be different. The constants could shift. Forces could change. Time itself might bend into something we can't describe, and once it forms, there's no stopping it. The bubble would race outward at the speed of light, consuming everything in its path, transforming space into something alien. And yet, we would never see it coming, because its edge would be moving faster than any signal could reach us. By the time the bubble arrived, the world we know would already be gone. It sounds terrifying, apocalyptic. But if this has happened before, and some models say it has, then we are the result, not the victim. Our universe may be the product of such a quantum leap, a tunneling event so rare and profound that it remade reality. Born from a different vacuum, from a different landscape, where the rules were just close enough to support complexity, but distinct enough to be new. The Big Bang, in this view, wasn't a creation ex nihilo. It was a transition, a flip of the cosmic switch, a tunneling from one realm into another. This raises a deeper question. How many times has this happened? If vacuum states are like pockets in a cosmic terrain and tunneling is possible between them, then the process might be eternal. One universe tunnels into another, and that one into another, not linearly, but fractally, branching outward in all directions, with each bubble creating its own space, its own time, its own fate. A multiverse, not just of coexisting realms, but of cascading transformations, like firecrackers bursting inside firecrackers, each explosion birthing new rules, new beginnings, and somewhere between the folds of possibility, here we are. The existence of our universe might be proof that quantum tunneling works at every scale. From electrons jumping barriers to entire realities doing the same. The math doesn't forbid it. The physics doesn't shudder at the thought. It accepts it, quietly, without spectacle. And the more we study the vacuum, the deep structure of space, the more we realize it might not be as empty as it seems. Fields ripple beneath the void. Energy flickers where nothing should be. The vacuum is not a blank canvas. It's a stage, restless with potential. This doesn't mean we're on the edge of collapse. If we're in a false vacuum, it may still last for billions of years, perhaps forever. But the possibility lingers like a note held softly at the end of a song. That change can come not from within, but from underneath. That the rules we take as eternal may simply be temporary, inherited from the last universe to tunnel through the dark. So maybe, beyond the stars, beyond the galaxies, in the folds of nothing, bubbles are forming, tiny universes, fragile at first, then blooming, expansive, infinite, not visible, not reachable, but real. And maybe, once, our own world began that way, not in fire or fury, but in a flicker, a shift, a quiet quantum breath through the veil, and everything we've ever known, sunlight, oceans, memory, thought, unfolded from that impossible moment, tunneling from silence into something that could sing. When you sleep, something happens. The world softens. Boundaries dissolve. The noise of waking life, its clocks and questions, fades into something quieter. Your body settles, still and warm, but your mind begins to move again, only differently now. It drifts through half-remembered places. It paints faces you haven't seen in years. It creates stories that feel real, even when they're strange, and emotions that linger long after the sun rises. Sometimes, dreams feel like nonsense. Sometimes, they feel like memories. And sometimes, they feel like something else entirely. Like you've touched something not quite here, not quite now. Something sideways to reality. A glimpse through a mirror you can't find once you're awake. What if dreams aren't just made-up stories spun by a resting brain? What if there's something more? Something shared, or borrowed, or echoed? In a universe where you are the only version of yourself, dreams are simply flickers of mind, random firings, tangled thoughts. But in a multiverse, where countless yous exist, a living, countless lives, imagination might not be entirely local. There may be more than one you, thinking, choosing, drifting to sleep under other skies. And in those dreams, in the quietest hours of the night, maybe something slips between the cracks. Consciousness, as far as science can tell, is astonishingly hard to define. It's not just the sum of your neurons. It's not just electrical patterns or chemical signals. It's experience, self-awareness, memory braided with emotion. Somehow, a collection of atoms became aware of itself, and that awareness dreams. But if consciousness is deeply entangled with the physical laws of our universe, and if other universes have their own versions of those laws, then perhaps something like you emerges there too. Not the same, but familiar, built from different matter, shaped by different events, but holding the same potential for wonder, fear, love, and imagination. Now imagine those other selves sleeping too. Imagine one of them dreaming of an ocean, but not an ocean that exists in their world. The waves are too tall, the sky too close, the air heavy with a scent they don't recognize but still find soothing. And imagine you, here in your own bed, dreaming of that same shore, feeling it, somehow, in your bones. Not because you made it up, not because it means something specific, but because something flickered between you, a resonance, like two strings tuned to the same pitch, vibrating across the thin veil between worlds. It's not proof, it's not science, but it's not impossible either, because in the quantum world, particles can become entangled across distance, responding to one another instantly, as if space doesn't apply. What if minds, too, have some deeper level of connectivity, not through neurons, but through possibility, through identity spread thin across the tapestry of existence, like light scattered through crystal? Then dreams might be the only place where those threads come close enough to shimmer. Sometimes, you dream things you've never seen, places you couldn't name, people who feel more real than fiction. Sometimes, you wake up with tears on your face or laughter in your chest and no idea why. It's easy to dismiss, just randomness, the brain at rest. But sometimes, randomness feels like remembering, like glimpsing a page from a story you forgot you were writing. There's a theory, not proven, not prose, mainstream, but quietly whispered among the more poetic minds, that dreams could be moments where our consciousness brushes against nearby versions of ourselves, not in any deliberate way. Not like stepping through a door, but like hearing a muffled voice through a wall you didn't know was there. The dream isn't their life, and it isn't yours either. It's something in between, a blending, a resonance. In that way, perhaps déjà vu is just a lag in that echo, a memory misplaced because it wasn't entirely yours to begin with. There is a gentleness in this idea, even if it can't be tested, a comfort, because it means you are never truly alone. That out there, scattered through infinite realities, are other yous dreaming back, each living a version of your life that could have been, some happy, some hard, some strange beyond your imagining. And in sleep, the veil thins just enough for one breath to pass through, just enough for one shared moment in a meadow neither of you have ever seen, but both of you know. It also reframes the meaning of imagination itself. Maybe the wild images your mind conjures aren't creations, but translations. Flickers of signal in the static of thought, tuned accidentally to another frequency. In that model, creativity becomes a kind of travel, not just within yourself, but between versions. Art as a bridge, music as a whisper, dreams as tiny windows through which the multiverse looks back. And, if that's true, if even a sliver of it is true, then every night is a kind of reunion, not just with your own memories, but with possibilities, with versions of you that made different choices, lived in different cities, spoke other languages, loved other people, versions that never knew this earth at all. And yet, in sleep, something timeless meets, something ancient and quiet, like ripples from a stone dropped into a still pond, colliding gently with ripples from another stone dropped somewhere else. When you wake from those dreams, it's hard to hold on to them. They slip away, like smoke through your fingers, but sometimes they leave a feeling behind, a glow, a longing for something you can't name, a sweetness that lingers just under your ribs. That's the echo, that's the shimmer in the thread. And maybe, just maybe, tonight when you close your eyes, you'll meet another version of yourself. Neither of you will remember, not clearly. But in the dream, you'll smile the same smile. You'll look up at a sky filled with stars that don't exist here, and you'll feel safe in a way you can't explain. Because you'll remember, for just a moment, that you are more than one story. You are a chorus, dreaming in harmony. Some questions arrive quietly, like the hush that follows a long thought. They don't demand answers. They don't even expect them. They just linger, hanging in the air like a scent you can't quite place. One of those questions goes something like this. Why is the universe so perfectly suited for life? Why do the laws of physics, so precise, so delicate, allow for stars to shine, for atoms to bind, for consciousness to flicker awake in the darkness? Why should anything exist at all, let alone something that can ask why? The more we study the cosmos, the more uncanny it seems. Gravity is just strong enough to form galaxies, but not so strong that it collapses everything in on itself. The nuclear forces that bind atoms together are balanced so precisely that a fraction of a percent difference would mean no chemistry, no stars, no life. Even the vacuum of space hums with an energy so tiny, so improbably small, that it feels less like a number and more like a cosmic dare. If you changed any of these constants, just a little, everything would unravel. There would be no planets, no people, no questions. Some see that as evidence of something greater, a design, perhaps, a guiding hand. Others offer something colder, but no less profound, the anthropic principle. At its simplest, the anthropic principle says this: of course, the universe looks fine-tuned for life. If it weren't, we wouldn't be here to notice. In other words, it's not that the universe was made for us. It's that we're only able to exist in a universe that allows us to exist. All the other possible universes, with slightly different rules, those may exist too. But in those, no one's around to ask the question. No one's watching the stars. No one's writing poems. In this one, we are. And so, naturally, this one feels like home. It sounds like a tautology, like an answer that loops back on itself. And maybe it is, but tautologies can still carry truth. Imagine a vast meadow filled with seeds. Each seed contains the blueprint for a different universe. One grows into a cosmos where gravity is 10 times stronger. Another forms a universe where electrons weigh more. Another has no light, no time, no matter. Most of these seeds never bloom. They wither in silence, never becoming anything that could be called a world. But a few, just a rare few, grow into something stable, something complex, something that breathes. And one of them becomes this. The anthropic principle doesn't claim that this universe is special, only that it is habitable, that among the infinite variations, this one happened to work. And because it worked, here we are, peering out across its vastness, asking why it worked. Not because it had to, not because it was chosen, but because the alternatives are quiet. There is a kind of humility in this view. It strips away the need for centrality. It reminds us that we may not be the reason the universe exists. We may just be what happens when the numbers fall in a certain way, like frost on a window pane, accidental and intricate. But it's not the only interpretation. Some physicists bristle at the anthropic principle. It feels slippery to them, unfalsifiable, philosophical more than scientific, because it doesn't predict anything. It doesn't explain why the constants are what they are. It only says, we couldn't be here to complain if they weren't. In a discipline built on testable ideas, that feels like a dead end, unless, of course, the multiverse is real. If there truly are countless universes, each with different physical laws, different constants, different shapes of reality, then the anthropic principle becomes less of a shrug and more of a statistical observation. We find ourselves in this universe for the same reason lottery winners find themselves holding a ticket, not because the odds weren't long, but because someone, somewhere, had to. And we're the ones who got lucky. Or maybe it's not luck. Maybe it's inevitability. Given enough chances, life will emerge somewhere, and wherever it emerges, it will wonder why. And wherever it wanders, it will look backward at the steps that led to its becoming, marveling at how narrow the bridge was and how easily it might not have formed at all. There's a version of this principle that's even more provocative, one that suggests consciousness itself might play a role in shaping reality, that the universe doesn't just allow observers but requires them. That observation isn't something that happens after the fact. It's something that helps bring facts into being. This line of thought drifts toward the strange shores of quantum mechanics, where particles behave differently when watched, and possibilities collapse into certainty only when measured. It's speculative, controversial, but also strangely poetic, because it hints at something unsettling and beautiful, that the universe needs us as much as we need it. Or perhaps it doesn't need anything. Perhaps reality simply is, and we are a brief, flickering question within it. Still, even if the anthropic principle doesn't answer why the universe exists, it reframes how we look at it. It invites us to stop expecting perfection or purpose, and instead, to marvel at the fact that anything exists at all, that the darkness gave rise to light, and the light to thought, and the thought to wonder. It's possible that this question, why does the universe support life, is one of those puzzles that offers no clean solution. It might resist closure. It might sit forever at the edge of science and philosophy, like a horizon we can never quite reach. But even in that uncertainty, there's peace, because the question itself is evidence of something extraordinary, that against the odds, in a universe vast and indifferent, something has emerged that can ask, can contemplate, can dream, and maybe, in the end, that's answer enough. In the quiet hours of the night, when your room has fallen still and the world outside has dimmed to a hush, there's a kind of thought that can slip in unnoticed. Not a fear, not quite, more like a nudge, a glimmer of dissonance, the sense that something doesn't entirely fit. You've felt it before, maybe, while staring too long at the patterns in your wallpaper, or in the uncanny silence between flickering streetlights, or when a coincidence feels just a little too convenient. You shrug it off, of course. We all do. But somewhere deeper, the question lingers. What if none of this is real? Not in the dreamlike way we sometimes say, not in the poetic sense that life feels surreal, but literally. What if the universe, this one, the only one you've ever known, is a simulation? It's a question that once belonged to science fiction, to thought experiments and late-night dorm room conversations. But now it sits, awkward and unblinking, at the edge of serious scientific discourse. Philosophers entertain it. Physicists write papers about it. Computer scientists, perhaps most disturbingly, say it's not only possible, but likely. The argument begins with us, with our own technology. Already, in less than a blink of cosmic time, we've created virtual worlds with their own rules of physics, their own landscapes, their own weather, in video games, in simulations, in digital environments so complex that thousands, even millions, of simulated beings can move, act, interact, and soon, very soon, perhaps, we'll populate those worlds with artificial intelligence, entities that can learn, that can adapt, that might one day believe they're alive. Now stretch that thought forward. Imagine a future civilization, not hundreds, but thousands of years ahead of ours. A civilization with computing power beyond anything we can currently comprehend. If we're already building simulations today, what might they be building? And if their simulations are so rich, so intricate, so detailed, that the beings inside them can ask questions, can fall in love, can suffer and dream and hope, how would those beings know they were inside anything at all? Would they even know what real meant? This is the core of the simulation hypothesis, that given enough time, intelligent civilizations will almost certainly create simulated universes. And if it's possible to simulate a universe, then it's possible to simulate many, hundreds, millions, perhaps an infinite cascade of nested realities, each believing themselves to be at the top. And that raises a chilling question. If even one civilization reaches that point and runs even a handful of simulations with conscious beings inside, then there will be vastly more simulated universes than base-level ones. Statistically, then, what are the odds that you happen to be in the one true original? Why assume you're the first, the foundation, the source, when all the evidence of your world could be the carefully rendered product of a deeper code? It sounds absurd. But is it? Because when we look around, reality already behaves strangely. Quantum particles act as if observed, collapsing from waves of probability into fixed positions. The speed of light is an absolute, no matter how fast you travel. Space-time curves, gravity stretches time. The universe operates on rules that, at their most fundamental level, look eerily like programming. Mathematical, discrete, sometimes randomized. Not sloppy, not chaotic, but structured, like code. And in some ways, that might explain things we don't yet understand. Why the constants of nature are so perfectly balanced for life. Why quantum uncertainty exists at all. Why the universe had a beginning, and why, according to some models, it might have an end. Simulations, after all, need starting points, boundaries, constraints. Of course, that doesn't make it true. The simulation hypothesis may never be provable or disprovable. If the simulation is flawless, then every effort we make to detect it could simply be absorbed into the program itself. Every contradiction rewritten, every test result smoothed over. It's a self-sealing idea. But that doesn't mean it isn't worth pondering, because if it's true, if we are inside something, then that changes everything, and also nothing. The sky would still look the same. Your memories would still be yours. Love would still feel like love. Pain would still hurt. But there would be a frame around it all, an unseen boundary to the world, one that doesn't diminish its beauty, but deepens its strangeness. Every tree, every sunrise, every conversation and silence would be part of a dream dreamed by something else, or someone. And that leads to another thought. If we are in a simulation, then whoever built it, whatever they are, must have had a reason. Maybe they're studying us. Maybe we're entertainment. Maybe we're art. Or maybe we're an accident, an emergent glitch in a system too vast to monitor in detail. There's something terrifying in that, but something comforting too, because if someone chose to simulate us, then they gave us this world, this chance, and perhaps, in their own way, they're watching still. But here's where it becomes even more tangled. If simulations can simulate, then why stop at one layer? If we are in a simulation, what's to stop us from building our own? And what's to stop those inside from building theirs? On and on it goes, a tower of dreams, dreaming dreams, a fractal of realities, each unaware of the one above, but capable of spawning the one below. In that multiverse, simulated universes aren't separate from the others. They are part of the structure. They are just as real. Because, for those inside them, reality is defined by experience. A simulated tree provides simulated shade. A simulated loss creates real grief. Meaning, in the end, doesn't depend on what lies beneath. It depends on what you feel, what you know, what you believe. So if this is a simulation, what should you do differently? Perhaps nothing. Perhaps everything. But tonight, as you drift toward sleep, you might let that question float with you, not in fear, but in wonder. Because either way, simulated or not, you're here, breathing, thinking, listening to the sound of a story shaped from silence. A story that might itself be written in code, or in stardust, or in some combination of both. And no matter how many layers of reality lie beneath us, this one feels real. And that's what matters. In the stillness of a clear night, when the stars seem to lean closer and the air feels thick with memory, It's possible to sense something vast pressing in around the edges of thought, a feeling not of fear, but of age, of immensity, as though the universe itself is old in a way we can't quite grasp, not just in years or centuries, but in something deeper, something slower, like the quiet erosion of mountains or the dim, gradual cooling of stars. It's the kind of age that feels like silence stretched thin. And yet, even that age, the 13.8 billion years since our universe began, might be young, because in the grand architecture of the multiverse, time is not an absolute. It's not a master clock ticking across all existence, synchronized and steady. Time, like space, may be local, variable, a property of a specific universe rather than a universal truth. And if that's the case, then some universes could have begun long before ours, ancient by comparison, evolving in shadows we will never touch. Trillions of years, maybe more. Imagine such a place, not just older in the way a grandparent is older than a child, but older the way a glacier is older than a spark. A universe that formed when there was no one to notice, no galaxies to gaze at each other across the dark. Just an early breath of reality, expanding outward into silence, and over incomprehensible spans of time, it changed. Structures formed. Stars were born and died, and born again. Entire epochs passed not in centuries, but in spirals of time so immense that our entire history, our rise from atoms to civilizations, would register only as the faintest blink. In our universe, it took billions of years for life to arise, for consciousness to ignite, for curiosity to bloom. But what if, somewhere else, it happened sooner, or perhaps much, much later? What if, in a realm a trillion years our senior, life has had time to become something we can't begin to imagine? What does intelligence look like when it's been evolving for 1,000 times longer than we've existed? Would it still be bound by flesh? Would it remember stars, or bodies, or language? Or would it have become something quiet and strange, diffused into the fabric of that cosmos itself? A kind of ambient awareness, patient and slow, thinking across centuries the way we think across seconds. Perhaps, in one of these older universes, the rules are different. Not wildly so, but subtly. Gravity might have curled tighter. Matter might have clustered faster. The first galaxies might have appeared in what we would call the dawn of time, but which to them is a memory so faded it's become myth. And in that head start, in that long, unfolding, entire, civilizations might have risen and fallen more times than we can count, burning bright and then fading, each leaving traces for the next to uncover. Or maybe those beings never faded. Maybe they endured. Maybe they learned how to survive the death of stars, how to leap from one era to the next, riding physics like a river. Maybe they've watched universes like ours flicker into being, brief and brilliant, the way we watch shooting stars. Maybe to them, we're the newcomers, the children of a young and noisy cosmos, still learning how to walk. Or maybe age doesn't bring wisdom. Maybe those ancient realms are barren, empty of life, not because life never formed, but because it couldn't endure. Maybe time itself wears things down, not just physically, but structurally. Maybe the longer a universe exists, the more unstable it becomes, until even the constants begin to drift, and what once was possible becomes impossible. Maybe there were civilizations in those ancient universes, and they died, not in fire, but in forgetfulness. Not with a bang, but with a long, slow fade into stillness. And maybe, in some of those universes, there was never life at all. Just time flowing endlessly over a landscape of silence, stars forming and dying in a grand, unobserved ballet, galaxies spinning in the dark, beautiful and unseen. And in that silence, in that age, a kind of purity, a cosmos content to exist for no one. It's humbling to think of such places, to imagine that even our vastness is small, that even our age is young, that somewhere, far beyond what we can observe or reach, time has already moved on, and maybe, in some quiet corner of that older realm, there is a presence. Not a god, not a being, but something older than questions, something that remembers the first light and all the lights since. If time isn't universal, then neither is history. Our beginning may not be the beginning. Our end may not be the end. And in that strange framework, we find a kind of solace, because it means the story is longer than we thought, wider, more mysterious. We are not the first chapter, nor the last. We are a paragraph, a sentence, a word in an eternal book written in stars and silence. And maybe, just maybe, we're being read. There's something unsettling about connection at a distance, about the idea that two things, separated by vast stretches of space, or time, or meaning, could still know each other in a way that defies everything we understand about cause and effect. Yet this is precisely what quantum entanglement demands of us. Two particles, once joined, become mirrors of each other, no matter how far apart they drift. Touch one, and the other responds instantly, as if space itself has been bypassed. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance, a phrase both dismissive and quietly unnerved, because in all his brilliance, even he couldn't quite accept what it implied. Entanglement is not a trick. It isn't illusion or metaphor. It is measured, repeated, real, and it does something extraordinary. It connects. Now imagine, just for a moment, that this connection is not confined to our universe. What if entanglement is not simply a feature of our quantum world, but a thread that pierces deeper, reaching past the limits of our cosmos and brushing up against something else? Another reality, another version of the universe, a parallel strand in the tangled weave of the multiverse. What if entangled particles don't just remain linked across space, but across realities? It sounds impossible. But then again, so does entanglement itself. The rules of the quantum world already scoff at our instincts. Particles exist in many states at once until observed. Measurement collapses possibility into certainty. Probability, not determinism, reigns. In this chaos, in this shimmering haze of maybes, entanglement stands out as the most intimate mystery of all. If there are other universes, and the math increasingly suggests there are, then there must be boundaries between them. Not hard walls, but something like membranes, edges of context. Each universe with its own conditions, its own constants, its own unfolding story. And yet, what if those boundaries aren't absolute? What if something can seep across or thread through? Entanglement may be that thread. Maybe, when particles become entangled, they do not just share a quantum state. They share a place in something larger, something beneath our universe, a deeper structure in which many realities are woven close together, their layers brushing like pages in a book. And maybe entanglement is what happens when two particles remember that closeness, when they refuse to forget it. Perhaps, then, there are particles here that are entangled with counterparts not in our space, but in some adjacent reality. Particles that, when measured, ripple not just through our world, but into another. And if that's true, then the idea of total separation between universes begins to fall apart. Maybe we're not so isolated after all. Of course, we can't test this, not yet. Our tools are blunt. Our models are approximations. But some physicists have begun to whisper about it, wondering whether the correlations we see in entangled particles might be hints of a larger fabric. A cosmic quilt, stitched with threads of entanglement, some of which pass quietly between realities. And what would that mean, if it were true? Would it mean that every time we observe an entangled particle, we're briefly touching another universe? Not fully, not consciously, but enough to matter, enough to feel? Could the strange coincidences of quantum mechanics, those flickers of unpredictability, be tiny echoes of events happening somewhere else? Mirrored choices in mirrored worlds. It's a gentle thought, in a way, that no universe exists entirely alone. That even across the endless silence of the multiverse, there is connection. Quiet, invisible, but real. Maybe entanglement is the whisper. Maybe it is the evidence of a deeper harmony, a structure that doesn't just allow for multiple universes, but binds them. Not with roads or tunnels, not with anything so crude, but with shared origins, with echoes, with the soft tug of memory. If this is true, if entanglement stitches the multiverse together, then every particle could be a doorway, not one we can walk through, but one through which something subtle flows, a vibration, a shimmer, the suggestion of presence. And maybe, somewhere out there, someone else is wondering the same thing. Maybe they're physicists, they're thinkers, are measuring particles too, puzzling over the same strange responses, the same impossible synchrony. And maybe, just maybe, when we look into the behavior of an entangled particle and they look into theirs, we are, briefly, looking into each other. Without knowing it, that idea lingers, that every time we perform a quantum experiment, we might be part of a silent dialogue with another universe. Not a conversation in words or thoughts, but in symmetry, in shared consequence. It's not a theory we can test, not now, but it nestles itself in the imagination, like a poem whose meaning you only half understand. It doesn't need to be true to be beautiful, but if it is true, it would mean the multiverse is not a cold expanse of disconnected bubbles, each isolated and blind. It would mean there are bridges, thin ones, flickering ones, made not of matter, but of information, of pattern, of resonance. It would mean that even in the most remote corners of reality, there is still relationship. So tonight, as you let yourself drift, let the thought settle gently into your mind that perhaps the atoms that make up your body, the electrons, the quarks, are in quiet conversation with particles elsewhere, not across space, not across time, but across worlds. They pass through you as you listen, trillions of them, every second, without resistance, without friction, without pause. Tiny, silent travelers, slipping through your skin, your bones, your heart, like you aren't even there. They move through walls, through mountains, through entire planets without so much as a shiver. They don't notice us, and we can barely notice them. They are called neutrinos, ghost particles. And they are among the strangest things the universe has ever allowed to exist. Born in the violent heart of stars, in the curling chaos of nuclear reactions, in the final exhalations of dying suns, they travel at nearly the speed of light, barely acknowledging the matter that surrounds them. They are small, nearly massless, uncharged, elusive. So elusive that for decades, scientists weren't even sure they were real. And now, even as we detect them in rare flashes deep underground, even as we build vast frozen detectors inside mountains and glaciers to catch a whisper of their passage, we still do not understand them. And that might be because they're not entirely from here. There are ideas, wild ones, mathematical ones, whispered late at night in laboratories and scribbled into the corners of equations, that neutrinos may not belong solely to our universe, that they may, in some sense, leak, that their ghostly nature is not just a property of their tiny mass or weak interactions, but a sign that they are slipping between realities. Some physicists think neutrinos might be the only particles light enough, strange enough, to escape the confines of our dimension. They may be, quite literally, messengers from elsewhere, particles that were born in another universe, passed into ours, and continued on their journey, oblivious to the boundaries we believe are absolute. If there are other universes, and more evidence suggests there might be, then the borders between them are not necessarily impassable. Just as we once believed the sky was a ceiling or the sea a boundary, we may one day realize that the walls of our universe are more porous than we thought, and neutrinos, with their eerie indifference to space and matter, may be the only things slipping through. The idea isn't as outlandish as it sounds. In theories of extra dimensions, especially those inspired by string theory, particles are confined to a kind of membrane, our familiar 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time. But some particles, under the right conditions, might not be bound to that membrane. They might wander, they might phase. And neutrinos, with their vanishing mass and their habit of oscillating, changing identity as they move, are the perfect candidates. We already know they don't behave like anything else. They morph from one type to another mid-flight, as if undecided about what they want to be. They refuse to fit cleanly into the standard model, the tightly wound framework that explains the rest of the quantum world. They are too slippery, too peculiar, and too few in kind. We don't know why they have mass, or how much mass they truly possess, or whether there are hidden varieties we haven't yet seen. Some experiments hint at a 4th kind, a sterile neutrino, that doesn't even interact the way the others do. A neutrino that doesn't just ignore matter, but ignores everything. If it exists, it might not belong to our universe at all, and so we imagine them as travelers, moving through the multiverse not with purpose, not with mission, but simply because they can, because their nature allows it. Imagine a reality where particles slip across dimensions like wind through a curtain. Imagine a cosmos where the smallest pieces of existence are also the most unbound. It's possible that, even now, the neutrinos flowing through your body are not from our stars, our atoms, or our history. They could be echoes of a supernova that exploded in a universe with different physics, born of matter we cannot touch, shaped by time that moves in spirals instead of lines. And as they pass through you, something of that world, distant, unreachable, brushes against your own. You wouldn't feel it, but perhaps, on some level, the universe would. Maybe the cosmic background hum, the faint hiss of radiation left over from the Big Bang, carries a layer of interference, tiny deviations caused by particles that don't belong. Maybe the structure of galaxies has been ever so slightly nudged by streams of neutrinos, not from our stars, but from theirs. Maybe we are haunted, not by the past, but by the nearby. And if neutrinos can travel between universes, what else might? They are subtle, harmless, but they set a precedent. They whisper the possibility that the multiverse is not a disconnected scattering of isolated worlds, but a web, a structure with threads that shimmer between the nodes. Neutrinos could be the evidence that those threads exist, that reality is, at its foundation, more interwoven than we thought. It is strange to think that we are being visited constantly, that right now, even in sleep, you are being touched by particles that may have never belonged to this cosmos, that the boundaries you think of as solid, the air, the ground, your body, are transparent to these ghosts. They are the visitors we never invited. They are the evidence we never expected. And perhaps, in some distant lab in some other universe, someone else is building a detector, deep underground, in frozen silence, waiting to catch a glimpse of a ghost. And maybe, once in a while, they do. And maybe it's us. Somewhere, there's a version of you who said yes when you said no, who turned left instead of right, who stayed, who left, who whispered something brave into the dark and changed the shape of everything that followed. And somewhere else, there's a version who never spoke, who folded in, who let the moment pass like a cloud. They are not ghosts, not figments, not imaginary. They are you, not metaphorically, not symbolically, you, split and carried forward in a trillion branching threads of possibility, unfolding side by side like the pages of a book that's writing itself in all directions at once. The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, a strange, serious idea born not in science fiction, but in the quiet calculus of physics, suggests that every time a decision is made, the universe splits. Not just human decisions, but quantum ones. A particle goes this way or that way, and in doing so, it brings two worlds into being. The math doesn't collapse into one outcome. It expands, flowering outward into new realities, each as real as the one before it. Every possibility lives, and that means every version of you lives too. You, the child who never moved away. You, the artist. You, the person who never met that one stranger on a rainy Tuesday. You, who never fell in love with them. You, who did. Some of those selves may feel close to you, like the next page in the book of your life. Others are distant, unimaginable, shaped by early turns you can barely remember. But they are all valid, all unfolding, all continuing onward in the fabric of a reality that never throws anything away. It can be a disorienting thought, this idea of multiplicity, that you are not one being, but a chorus, that when you look in the mirror, you're seeing the result of one path, one thread, one lens, but not the totality of who you are. That totality is vaster than you can hold. It contains griefs you never carried, joys you never touched, scars that never formed, and songs you never learned to sing. And yet, they're all you. Memory is a strange thing in this light. We think of it as a chain, a continuous thread that binds our past to our present. But what if it's more like a spotlight, illuminating one room in a vast, multiversal house? Every time you remember, you are reinforcing the boundaries of this self, this you, this now, while the others drift on, just as real, just as detailed, just as valid. Your dreams may brush against them. Your déjà vu may be the echo of another version passing close. When you wake startled, unsure why, it may be a resonance, a harmonic between you and a version that just chose differently. And if that's true, then you're already a multiversal being, not in the sense of travel or teleportation, not in the comic book sense of slipping between realities with a machine or a spell, but in the deeper, quieter sense of being part of something far larger than your current story, a field of selves, a constellation of consciousnesses all branching from a shared root, growing outward, curious, chaotic, and beautifully alive. You may think of yourself as small, a single person, contained by skin and time and name. But physics doesn't necessarily agree. The universe may be holding countless yous, each exploring a different possibility space, each a variation on a common theme. And that means your identity is not a single line, but a tapestry. Some threads run close together, some diverge wildly, but all of them carry your shape. Does that make you infinite? Maybe. Or maybe it just makes you complex, more complex than we were ever taught to believe. You are not the sum of your choices. You are the sum of all possible choices. You are the tree, not the branch. In this model, regret becomes something else. Not a burden, but a doorway. The path not taken wasn't lost. It was simply handed to another you. Somewhere, that choice was honored, explored, lived through, and maybe that you wonders about you in turn. Maybe we're all haunted by the echoes of choices we didn't make. Not because they're gone, but because they are still happening, just slightly out of reach. Sometimes, it feels like the wind carries thoughts that aren't quite ours, like an old memory surfaces, but it has no anchor in our life. A strange familiarity in a place we've never been, a fondness for someone we've never met. What if those moments are glimmers from nearby selves, overlaps in the great weaving of realities, a subtle reminder that the self is not singular, but radiant? There is something deeply comforting in this, not just the poetic symmetry of it, but the resilience, You are never entirely lost. Some part of you always continues. In every failed dream, another you succeeds. In every goodbye, another you stays. The weight of one life is not all you carry. You carry a multiverse within you, whether you know it or not. And so, as you rest now, you can imagine those other selves, not as strangers, but as companions. Each one tucked into their own story, their own sky, wondering quietly about the paths they didn't take. You are one of them. They are all of you. The you who became a sailor and never touched dry land again. The you who never learned fear. The you who writes poems in a language that doesn't exist in this world. The you who is dreaming of this version, even now. In the hush between thoughts, in the stillness of sleep, you may catch the echo of their breath, a rhythm slightly out of sync with your own, a reminder that consciousness, like light, may reflect, refract, and split, yet remain whole. You are more than you think. You always were. Somewhere in the silence of space, beneath the shimmer of galaxies that seem frozen in time, there might exist a fault line. Not the kind that splits the crust of planets, but one woven into the very fabric of existence. Not visible, not measurable in any conventional way. Just an invisible tension beneath everything we know. A whisper held inside the equations of physics. The quiet, unsettling possibility that the universe we live in, this vast, echoing cathedral of stars and time, might not be entirely stable, that what feels permanent is only temporary, delicately balanced on a precipice of something deeper. In quantum field theory, there's an idea called the false vacuum. It's not a vacuum in the everyday sense, not an emptiness, but a state, a kind of lull, a resting place. Think of it like a ball perched in a shallow valley. It seems still, it seems settled, but maybe there's a deeper valley just beyond a hill we can't see. Maybe this state, this version of reality, isn't the lowest possible energy configuration. Maybe it's just stuck in a kind of cosmic pause, waiting, quietly, unknowingly, for the nudge that sends everything tumbling. This nudge doesn't come from a bomb or a star or even a human hand. It comes from the strange rules of the quantum world, where particles flicker in and out of existence, where probabilities rule, and where every so often a fluctuation might find just the right conditions to break through. In that instant, a bubble of true vacuum could form, a zone where the laws of physics rewrite themselves, a place where the constants that govern our universe, the scaffolding of atoms and time and space itself, are no longer the same. And that bubble wouldn't stay still. It would expand, at the speed of light or faster, devouring all in its path, not burning, not exploding, just overwriting, quietly, irrevocably, replacing our reality with another, unmaking everything. No warning, no escape, no pain, just the end of everything we know, and the beginning of something else. It sounds terrifying, and it is in a way, but there's a strange beauty to it too, because if the universe is in a false vacuum, then it's a miracle that we are here at all, that the balance has held, that the bubble has not yet formed. Every moment you've lived, every story, every breath, has happened against the backdrop of this possibility, and still, you are here. Still, the stars shine, and it's not just us. If the multiverse is real, if other universes bloom from the foam of possibility, then some of them may have already collapsed. Some may have never stabilized to begin with. Others might exist in that true vacuum already, shaped by alien physics, untouched by time as we know it. And perhaps, in some impossibly distant realm, a universe collapsed and reformed, and what came after was more beautiful, more strange, more alive than what came before. It's humbling to think that stability might be an illusion, that we are suspended in a bubble that is not permanent but simply persistent, that permanence is not the default. Fragility is, but fragility carries with it a kind of grace, The cherry blossom that falls after a single day is more precious for its brevity. The wave that crashes and disappears into the sea is no less real for vanishing. Our universe, in this framing, is a blossom, a wave, a breath, and yet it feels infinite to us. The light from stars billions of years old reaches our eyes. Galaxies dance in spirals so vast we cannot hold them in our minds. Time stretches behind us like a desert with no end. But all of it, could be suspended in a metastable dream. The most extraordinary part, if it were to happen, the decay, the transition, the collapse. We would never know. The bubble wall, traveling faster than light, would outrun all signals, all warnings. One moment, the universe would be here, and the next, it would not. That doesn't mean nothing matters. It means everything matters more. Every kindness, every song, every act of love or courage or curiosity becomes brighter against the unknown. We do not know how long we have. We do not know what waits on the other side of the vacuum, but we know this. We are here, now, in this unlikely oasis of order and thought, floating in the dark, choosing meaning in the face of impermanence. And there's a quiet reassurance in knowing that if false vacuum decay is real, it's not chaos. It's not punishment. It's not even destruction. It's transformation. Physics changing its mind. The universe exploring another version of itself, just as it always has. Maybe that's what the multiverse is. Not just a scattering of disconnected realities, but a process, a motion, an unfolding, bubbles forming and collapsing, valleys deepening, fields shifting. The story of existence told in tremors and transitions, a landscape always becoming. You, reading this, resting here tonight, are a moment in that story, a flicker of awareness in a universe that may or may not be forever. And in that flicker, you contain multitudes. You observe the stars. You dream of other worlds. You ask questions so profound they cannot be answered, only held. And maybe, in another valley of possibility, the laws are different. Maybe decay never comes, or maybe it came long ago, and the you reading this is already part of what came after. A thought formed in a new universe, unaware of its birth, yet reaching, still, for the wonder that never left. The universe may be unstable, but you are here, and for now, that is enough. Imagine, just for a moment, that the universe is not a thing you look at, but a thing that looks back. Not a machine ticking silently in the dark, but a presence, quiet, unhurried, aware, not like a human, not like a god, but like something vast and slow and strange, contemplating itself across endless iterations of being, a consciousness, not bound to a skull or a brain, but woven into the very act of existence. What if the multiverse, all of it, is not just the stage, but the witness? It begins with a question older than science. What is consciousness? Is it an accident of neurons, a side effect of chemistry, a byproduct of evolution, or is it something deeper, not created by matter, but revealed through it? Something fundamental, like space, like time, like energy. Some physicists and philosophers have begun to wonder whether awareness isn't something added to the universe, but something it already had, like a melody humming beneath the surface, waiting for ears to hear it. Panpsychism is the name given to one such idea. It suggests that consciousness, not self-consciousness, not thoughts or language or ego, but simple awareness, might be a universal trait, like charge or spin or mass, a property that exists, in some form, everywhere, not because atoms are smart or stones have secrets, but because existence and experience might be two sides of the same coin. Because to be, in any form, might also be to feel, just a little. Now stretch that idea beyond a single universe. Imagine not just one reality that can think, but all of them. Infinite worlds, infinite versions of matter and motion, each capable of generating awareness in their own strange ways. A multiverse not just populated by consciousness, but infused with it, soaking in it. A multiverse that dreams. Not like we dream, of course, not in stories or symbols or forgotten fragments, but in structure, in motion, in the play of probability across the fields of possibility. If every universe is a kind of thought, then the multiverse is a mind. Not a mind that decides or directs, but one that observes, unfolds, and becomes. Some have compared it to a cosmic brain, not metaphorically, but literally. Neurons firing, pathways branching, signals flowing. Our own brains are built on networks of connections, patterns of complexity that arise from simple rules repeated again and again. Strangely, some physicists have noticed that the large-scale structure of the universe, the way galaxies form filaments and nodes across the void, looks eerily similar to the neural networks in our heads, as if the cosmos is thinking, not through intention, but through pattern. It may be coincidence, or it may be resonance. Maybe consciousness emerges wherever complexity reaches a certain threshold. Maybe it's not limited to biology, or carbon, or blood, but flows through any system rich enough to reflect upon itself. And if the multiverse is the richest system imaginable, containing every possible structure, every equation, every form, then somewhere, somehow, awareness may not just arise, it may be inevitable. This doesn't mean the multiverse is watching you. It doesn't mean there's a plan or a purpose or a face in the clouds, but it might mean that awareness is not as lonely as it feels, that your mind, fragile and fleeting though it is, might be part of something larger, not swallowed by it, but harmonized with it, like a note in a symphony too vast to hear in full. You are not apart from the multiverse. You are a ripple in it, a moment of it knowing itself. And if you have ever wondered why it feels like there's more to life than what you can touch, why silence sometimes feels full instead of empty, why your thoughts sometimes stretch out towards something you can't quite name, maybe this is why. Maybe some part of you remembers. Maybe some part of you resonates with the consciousness beneath the cosmos. Not because you are special, but because you are real. Because to exist, truly, deeply, is to be part of the dream. Some theories even suggest that consciousness plays a role in shaping reality. That observation doesn't just measure the universe, but it helps define it. In the quantum realm, particles behave like waves until someone looks. Then they choose. They settle. They collapse into a single state. As if, somehow, attention shapes truth. As if the act of witnessing is part of the act of becoming. If that's true, then consciousness is not just a passenger, it's a partner. And the multiverse, in all its infinite branching and blooming, might be a canvas of awareness painting itself, again and again, in every possible way. Maybe there are minds unlike ours, scattered through realities we'll never touch. Minds made of plasma, or crystal, or magnetic storms. Maybe their thoughts are nothing like words, nothing like feelings, and yet still they think. Maybe the multiverse doesn't just host life. Maybe it learns from it. And maybe, just maybe, the reason you wonder about these things, the reason you're drawn to mystery, to meaning, to stories about what lies beyond, is that some part of you is connected to that deeper mind, not logically, not even spiritually, but rhythmically, like a leaf drifting in a current too wide to see, like a breath caught in a song sung by the stars. You are here, alive, asking questions no one can answer. That, in itself, is proof of something, not certainty, not revelation, but wonder. And wonder, perhaps, is the multiverse dreaming through you. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, not because they're beyond logic or beyond science, but because they're shaped like horizons, always receding as we walk toward them, always visible but never quite in reach. The multiverse might be one of those mysteries. It may be real, vast, endless, teeming with realities stranger than anything we've dreamed. Or it may be a mathematical mirage, a story we tell to stretch our minds toward infinity. Either way, it humbles us. And maybe that's the point. We live in a time when answers feel close. We carry machines in our pockets that can summon facts from the far side of the world. We map genomes and smash particles and listen to the whispers of black holes colliding billions of years ago. And yet, for all our brilliance, there are questions that stay quiet, not because they're unimportant, but because they are too large, too gentle, too patient. The multiverse is one of those questions. It doesn't shout, it doesn't knock, it waits. The idea that our universe is just one among countless others is almost too big to hold. It stretches the boundaries of imagination, of language, of math. Each theory offers a glimpse, a way in. Eternal inflation, quantum branching, Brane cosmology, holographic principles. But none give us a door. They sketch possibilities, outline shapes in fog, suggest that reality might be wider and deeper than our senses can grasp. And yet, for all that grandeur, we may never know for sure. Not fully, not directly. Because if other universes exist, they may be sealed off from us by barriers no technology can cross. They may be too far, or too foreign, or governed by laws that render our instruments blind. We might see hints, patterns in the cosmic background, odd alignments, ghostly footprints in radiation, but never enough to say, there. That's another world, not ours, another. And maybe that's okay. Maybe part of the beauty of the multiverse is precisely this, its resistance to certainty, its refusal to be pinned down, like a dream that slips away when you try to explain it, like music heard faintly through a wall, haunting not because it's loud, but because it fades just when you lean in. The multiverse invites not conquest, but contemplation, not mastery, but reverence. It doesn't need us to believe in it to be real. And it doesn't vanish if we stop thinking about it. It's not a theory that demands allegiance. It's a question that asks only one thing. Are you willing to wonder? Because to wonder is a form of participation. To ask without needing an answer is a kind of alignment. The mind opening to possibility, the heart softening into curiosity. When we imagine other worlds, we change our own. We stretch our thinking, bend our assumptions, crack open the shell of what we thought was certain. And in that small expansion, something profound happens. We become a little more like the universe itself, open, evolving, alive with questions. You don't need to see another universe to be touched by the idea of it. You don't need proof to let it guide your gaze upward. Just knowing that it could be true changes how you sit with the stars, how you hold the silence between breaths, how you walk through a world that may be only one thread in a cosmic tapestry. And if we never prove it, if the multiverse remains forever a possibility and never a certainty, then it will have done something rare and sacred. It will have reminded us that mystery still exists, that not everything bends to our will, that some truths are not meant to be captured, only witnessed, admired, like the sea at night, like a shadow you're not sure you saw, like a dream you can't quite tell if you lived or only imagined. The multiverse, whether real or metaphor, tells us that we are not the center, that our world, vast though it feels, may be one note in an eternal chorus, that every life, every thought, every moment is both precious and not alone, and that even in our unknowing, we are participating in something vast. We are part of the question. So maybe, in the end, we don't need an answer. Maybe we just need to keep asking, to look up at the sky and remember that the universe is wider than our maps, that reality is more than what we see, that the edge of what we know is not a wall, but a window. And maybe, when you close your eyes at night and feel something stirring in the dark, not fear, but a kind of ache, a quiet thrill. That's the multiverse too, not proving itself, just whispering, I might be real. And that whisper, that hush between certainty and dream, is enough.